everyone. We're going to be reviewing a book, Embracing Lilith by Mark H. Williams. This was a book I was excited to read. I heard it had a unique perspective on Lilith. I'll share my thoughts on how that translated to me personally and how your mileage may vary. This is going to be general information. I'm not going to go too deep, but I'll give you enough information to judge whether this would be useful for you personally to have. So, the best way I can summarize this book is it's kind of a more Gnostic, mystic, almost Luciferian approach to Lilith. The author draws a lot on Hebrew sources in addition to general Christian sources, including Christian Gnostic. I'll get into some more of the influences as we go along, but it's divided into 3 sections. The first section is basically exploring the archetype of Lilith. And then the second part is fiction, or a reinterpretation. It's a prose. So I consider it to be a fiction inspired by the author's interpretation. But if you find that it's useful to you, that's good. But we'll get into why I term it that way in a second. Third part is mostly rituals, but also some personal anecdotes from the author and other people, I believe. But it basically is just a basic 101 of kind of how to work with Lilith and the author's personal interpretation of it based on that Gnostic informative sources. So I liked this interpretation of Lilith overall. I also really like that this book is honest. I have read a lot of really lackluster books on entities, and I have also read books that feel like devotionals to entities. The honesty in this book makes me lean towards categorizing it as a devotional work. I also liked the author's take on her relationship with the Tree of Life and Tree of Death. I call those two the Tree of Knowledge, but the author calls it the Tree of Life and Tree of Shadows. Lilith is also compared to entities that I knew had a relationship with Lilith, such as Norea from the Gnostic point of view, and the Brazilian Kimbanda spirit, Pombagira. Not very well versed in Portuguese, but yeah, that was something that I thought was refreshing and are common associations with Lilith. So, because of that, I'm inclined to say this would be a good book for people who want to start working with Lilith from a Luciferian or Gnostic perspective, specifically, or mystic generally. But this is not the book for everybody, and there are as many points I think are not as good as the points I pointed out here. So if you're trying to approach Lilith from a pagan perspective, this is probably not going to be as helpful to you. I also noticed that when the author... There's a section where the author connects Lilith with other dark entities. I think some have more collective merit than others. I'm not saying the author cannot connect Lilith with Dakini or Santa Muerte, but I personally think those connections are just archetypal. And I'm actually a little bit miffed how he decided to connect Santa Muerte and Lilith, because to me, Santa Muerte is on a whole other level. Santa Muerte is... she's something else. Another story for another time. And Lilith, I feel like, could have gotten a lot more different spotlights in this book. I'm also going to review the sequel to this book, so we'll see if some of this is addressed in the sequel. So, other than those points, when I was reading this book, I did not find the writing style very engaging. It's very plain and to the point, which is good for communication, but not very good for engagement. The prose suffers most from this, especially since the quality of the prose feels a lot like fan fiction that has been edited in Grammarly. So, I'm not saying the prose is entirely trash. I think the author wrote it with an honest attempt to meld together the sources explored in this book. I would have liked to see a little something else in the prose other than just a string of events going from Jewish sources to Christian sources, back to Jewish, back to Gnostic, kind of like... It's kind of like a whole big redemption arc for a misunderstood Lilith. That's fine. It could have been done better. I applaud the author for the attempt. I think some people who want to read about Lilith might find this tacky. So that's why I put it in the shortcomings section. So there are my thoughts on all that. So as you can see, this is a very conflicting book to recommend. On the one hand, it's unique. I would recommend it for that alone, especially for people who have more of a mystic approach to their path. On the other, it's not going to cater to everybody. About a third of the book is very unique but plain prose. Again, the fact the author was inspired to do this, I could feel that, and I think the author is very brave, and I appreciate the honesty. But from a technical standpoint, it read a little bit like it needed some work. So whether this book is for you or not, I hope I gave you enough information to kind of weigh that decision. Again, it's not a bad book. I'm going to keep it in my library despite its shortcomings. I'm going to review a sequel at some point. Guess be on the lookout for that. And speaking of keeping a lookout for things, if you like what you see here, and you're really wanting to see that sequel review, maybe consider subscribing. I try to post a new video every other Saturday. I hope to see you around. Might be a while before I get to that sequel, but you'll get a whole lot of other content in the meantime. Till then.